So it's been 4 days since I last did an MLS video, and you know, this obviously will happen occasionally in terms of my channel, considering the fact that there hasn't really we're into the off season where the only thing I am left to do is just talk about some of the news and maybe some big event that has happened in MLS. But other than that, it's just besides the Sports Hop series that I'm going to be doing and also these kind of news that I'm going to be talking about on my channel, that's pretty much it what I'm going to put out in terms of content in my new channel, or not my new channel, but in the channel that I have right now. Now, I am planning to try to be a little bit more proactive in terms of my second channel, and I'm probably going to make an announcement of welcoming back my second channel, considering the fact that it's kind of been a little bit dead. I mean, the last video that I've uploaded in my second channel was like 3 months ago, and I felt like that is just way too long since the last time I uploaded a video on my second channel. But either way, let's talk about some of the news that has happened in the last 4 days, and we start off with something that just happened today. And that is Luchi Gonzalez, FC Dallas Academy Director, is now the head coach of FC Dallas. So Luchi Gonzalez now take in charge of former FC Dallas manager Oscar Pereira was, and that he's now with Tijuana. And this is certainly a kind of, I would say this is definitely a very cheap move that FC Dallas is trying to make. And cheap has been kind of the word that you would describe what FC Dallas has been doing this offseason. I mean, when you look at some of the players that they sold off to other clubs, some of the player that was part of this core of FC Dallas that they built on a couple of years ago and that they sold off for very cheap prices, yeah, it's only fitting that they decided to go cheap once again and decided to look for their head coach in a way that it's someone from the organization. Now, I'm not saying that cheap is not the way to potentially get back to winning ways for Dallas, and I'm pretty sure that next season Dallas is probably going to take a couple step back, considering the fact that they lost a couple of their key core pieces that they had throughout these last couple of years, and that it's kind of a time where Dallas is sort of in a rebuilding stage where they're gonna hopefully bring a couple of more guys from their academy, and hopefully that those players will be just as solid as the core that they built a couple of years ago. But I'm pretty sure a couple of FC Dallas fans would kind of felt like the team could have done a little bit better in terms of the hiring that they done, and a lot of them probably wish that they should have hired Tat Ramos, considering the fact that not only he is a coach that does well with youth talent, but he's also a very experienced kind of coach with the U.S. under-21 national team. But nevertheless, we'll see how Luchi Gonzalez does with this team. And, I've never seen a academy director that make the jump to being a head coach of an MLS team that immediately does well or actually does well for their team. But we'll see how it goes. And with FC Dallas, their approach in terms of how they want to be successful in MLS is just promoting their youth talent and pretty much putting that youth pipeline that they had in their academy into their squad. And that, of course, is the way that they think is a philosophy for them to potentially be successful, which it has shown in the past that they have been successful in that philosophy. But yeah, speaking of coaching, in the next news, Caleb Porter is expected to be the next head coach of the Columbus Crew and not the LA Galaxy. Now, I think in the last episode of my MLS News of the Week, I talked about how Caleb Porter was getting very close to be the next head coach for the Galaxy, but a couple of days ago, report says that he is actually not going to be going to the Galaxy, but instead he's going to be going to the Columbus Crew. And there are a couple of reasons why Porter decided to snub the Galaxy and instead join the Crew. One of the reason is that his family is actually from Akron, and that, you know, if he joined Columbus, he will be definitely a little bit closer to his family. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how far of a drive from Akron it is from Columbus, but you know, it does make sense the fact that he wanted to be closer with his family, and that's why he decided to accept the Columbus Crew job. But the second reason is that the Galaxy didn't really offer him a very good contract option. The Galaxy actually decided to offer him a short-term kind of contract, and Caleb Porter basically just say no, and that he wants a long-term contract. And in some way, I think this is a smart move by the Galaxy, kind of pulling out of this deal, considering the fact that, you know, the last two head coach that they offer long-term contract, Kurt Onefor and Ziggy Schmidt, both of them offer long-term contract, and it did not go very well whatsoever. In fact, both of those head coach kind of last less than a year, and I think to this day the Galaxy still owes money to Onefor and Ziggy Schmidt, despite the fact that both of them has been fired. And it's clear that the new GM for the Galaxy is trying not to fall into that same trap that the old Galaxy GM decided to do. And yeah, that is exactly why they decided to not get Caleb Porter. And in some way, I guess a lot of Galaxy fans are pretty happy with this deal, considering the fact that many of them didn't want Porter in the first place. You know, I kind of felt like Porter could definitely fit with the Galaxy. You know, he's a very experienced MLS head coach, also won a MLS Cup for the Portland Timbers, and I thought he was going to do good things with this team. But apparently, a lot of Galaxy fans thinks that he is kind of an MLS 1.0 head coach, which is something that they just really don't want to continue for the Galaxy, and that they should be a little bit more ambitious in terms of some of their head coach search. And yeah, that is exactly why they didn't want Caleb Porter. And I've been saying in the past that I actually do want Caleb Porter to be the head coach of the Quakes, because I know that he has good experience and he has been very successful, and also he has won an MLS Cup before. So yeah, we shall see who exactly the Galaxy will target it in the future. And for the Columbus Crew, they have probably now got their replacement for Greg Berhalter, and that Caleb Porter will be taking over their team. Speaking of Columbus, so Ohio legislature unanimously approved Columbus' new stadium. And I'll tell you what a crazy year this has been for the Columbus Crew. And if you're a fan of the Columbus Crew, what a crazy year it's been in terms of off-the-field issue. I mean, back in the beginning of the year, there was a lot of talk of them potentially moving to Austin, and that Anthony Precourt, one of the most idiotic owner in MLS, decided to move the team to Austin because the team didn't want to build that new stadium. And then eventually Precourt had some lawsuits that he has to fight off from a couple of the Columbus City Council, and also the Ohio State kind of council. And then he decided to offer anyone to potentially buy Columbus, the team. And Jimmy Haslam, of course, a couple of months ago says that he is interested of buying the team. And right now there is still no kind of official news that Jimmy Haslam has brought the team, but there's been definitely heavy links that he is going to buy the team, and that he is going to be the new owner of the Columbus Crew. And just a couple of months ago, it looked like the Columbus Crew is actually going to be staying in Columbus, and that they are not going to be moving to Austin, which is a big accomplishment that the Save the Crew movement has made. And it was a huge victory that the Save the Crew movement has done. And now, heading into the end of the year, they are now potentially getting their new stadium. I mean, what a year it's been. It's been just an absolute roller coaster ride. And it started with a season with a lot of uncertainty. Now it ends in just a big future for this team. And no, I certainly congratulate Columbus in terms of them staying in Columbus. Well, I congratulate the crew staying in Columbus and that they decide to not move to Austin. And it's going to be interesting to see how this team is going to be in the future. And I am definitely looking forward to their new stadium. I mean, it's the rendering of that stadium is definitely not the most beautiful stadium we have seen so far by other new MLS stadium, but it's certainly a stadium that Columbus clearly deserved. So, yeah, we shall see how this news is gonna develop. And again, the Ohio legislature unanimously approved Columbus' new stadium, and now it's just a matter of time when are they going to have the groundbreaking event that is going to be happening in this new stadium. Other news that has happened in these last 4 days, and most of these news that I'm going to be talking about is going to be about signing because, signings just continue to happen in these last 4 days. There's just been non-stop trade by many of the team and non-stop big name trade that has happened around the MLS offseason. And we start off with Rodney Wallace has been signed by SKC via free agency. So Rodney Wallace is now going to be heading to Sporting KC and have now left NYCFC via free agency. And I believe he was the first player to be claimed off of free agency. And, it looked like most likely Wallace is going to be just a bench player for this team and kind of a depth piece for Sporting KC because the spot that he currently occupies is where Daniel Shalhoub plays. And, it's definitely a very good depth piece for Sporting KC. Rodney Wallace a couple of years ago was an absolute stud for NYCFC. And, last season he kind of felt out of favor and kind of fell out in terms of the pecking order, relegating him to being on the bench as a substitute. But now he is going to be heading to Sporting KC, and hopefully he can maybe revitalize of the impressive form that he has shown in the last couple of years. Another piece that Sporting KC has picked up is Eric Hurtado from the Vancouver Whitecaps. So Hurtado, of course, traded to Sporting KC. Vancouver will be getting Sporting KC's second round pick in 2020 and getting the first round pick in 2021 as the deal that they got from Eric Hurtado. And Hurtado hasn't really done very well for the Whitecaps. He was a guy that a lot of Whitecaps fans think that it could be a guy that would solve their forward situation that they've been kind of having issue for the last couple of years, but it turns out that was not the case, and that he kind of fell out of favor, and now he's going to be going to Sporting KC. And just like Rodney Wallace, where I think that this is just going to be a depth piece for Sporting KC, it's the same case for Eric Hurtado. I think this is going to be a depth piece. I think he's going to be right behind Diego Rubio in terms of the depth chart in the striker department. And yeah, moving on, in the next news, the Dynamo have report that they have signed another Honduran, and this time they had signed right back Kevin Alvarez. And the reason why I said that they have signed another Honduran is that this will be the fourth Honduran that they have got, and the fourth young Honduran that they have got in this team. So they already have Albert Feliz, Romeo Kyoto, and Bonek Garcia, and I believe all three of these players are under 25 player from Honduras. And it's interesting why the Dynamo are decided to go through a movement where they're just gonna sign some of the best Honduran young players. And Honduras is definitely not the most talented countries in terms of the FIFA rankings, and just overall that Honduras is not really like the strongest country in CONCACAF, but it seems like they definitely have some young talent on that team. And Dynamo, of course, decided that they're going to do the same thing that they did a couple of years ago, signing some of those Honduran player, and that, they of course signed Kevin. Report that they're gonna sign Kevin Alvarez as their right back, and I think this is also a replacement for Andrew Wenger. I believe Wenger used to play in that right back position, and since that he is now retired from the Dynamo desperately need somebody to play in the right back position, and apparently Kevin Alvarez might be actually the replacement that they're going to get. And then the last two news is that Nick DeLeon is going to be going to TFC via the re-entry draft. So the re-entry draft just happened a couple of days ago, and as expected, there wasn't really much happening because it is the re-entry draft, and usually whenever we go through the re-entry draft and also the oh god, I forgot what was the name of the other draft, but usually when you see these kind of draft before the super draft that's going to be happening at the end of the year, it's not going to be just some big time kind of signings. Most of these guys are entering these draft because they were declined their contract option and that they were waived by their team, and that's why they were in the re-entry draft. And the biggest name that was picked up in the re-entry draft was Nick DeLeon, a guy that, of course, scored the extra time tying goal for DC United in that DC United versus Columbus Crew knockout round match, and also missed the crucial penalty and ultimately cost DC United a chance to move on into the next round and got eliminated by the Columbus Crew in the knockout round. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of signing for TFC. I haven't heard a lot about DeLeon and whether or not if he's a very kind of decent player, but certainly he is the biggest name and the most recognizable name to be picked up in the re-entry draft. And then finally, before I end this video and wrap up the news of the week, the LA Galaxy have now once again renamed their stadium. This time they're gonna name their stadium Dignity Health Sports Park, and this is, I believe, the second straight time that the Galaxy decided to name their stadium from a company that is based in San Francisco. Obviously, StubHub is a San Francisco company, and Dignity Health is also a San Francisco company, and I think Dignity Health is also one of the sponsor for the San Francisco Giants. And I don't know what fans will now call this stadium in short. I guess you can say the Digs as a short kind of phrase of where you actually would go to watch the Galaxy play. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will just continue to call it the StubHub Center, just like how before when it was called the Home Depot Center, and that once the stadium was switched to the StubHub Center, a lot of people still called it the Home Depot Center, even though it's now the StubHub Center. And I think eventually people will kind of stop calling it the StubHub Center and now call it the Dignity Health Sports Park. And for the Galaxy, I guess in some way, naming your stadium after either a healthcare or a hospital could come in two different ways. One, it could end up being very well, like Sporting KC of how they named their stadium Children Mercy Park, and that Sporting KC looks very decent. Or you could end up like the Quakes, where they basically, one of their sponsor was Sutter Health, and they were absolutely awful last season, and also pretty much throughout the last couple of years. So yeah, that is pretty much it for my news of the week. Let me know in the comments below what other news that I have missed this week. Obviously, I definitely does not cover every single news in MLS in terms of these video, but I covered the biggest news that has happened in the last couple of days. But let me know in the comments, what do you think of these news or other news that I have missed? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.